Good. Cool.
It looks like we're good.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Telling It Like It Is. My name is Jade Alberts, the founder of Peer Guidance. We are outside our comfort zone like every other entrepreneur and every other industry and every other life. And we're at the Wave Center in downtown Calgary. I've got Jason Cameron here with me. I'm pretty pumped. I'm pretty excited. We're going to talk about all the exciting things that's going on at the Wave Center. But before we get started, I just want to let anybody know that, Founders Coffee scrolling across the bottom every Tuesday, 7:30 a.m. at Red's Diner in Kensington. So come on out, come see some entrepreneurs. And you know what? Let's start talking about the city of Calgary and Wave Center. Jason, how are you today?
I'm awesome. This is great. Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for being flexible. We're in a sandbox and everything is experimental and beta and not everything is perfect. And we're winging it.
I'm a big fan of winging it. I love winging it. I love everything about winging it. I think more entrepreneurs need to wing it and not be so structured and, go with their gut feeling. So I'm sure a little bit we're going to be great and this conversation about how the wave is going to benefit tech in Calgary. So I wouldn't mind maybe having a little conversation about yourself. Have a little conversation about yourself, how you kind of get started here, and then we'll dive into the tech center.
Awesome. Yeah, sure. Well, I am the program manager for Smart Cities, and I lead experimentation, engagement, and storytelling. So Sandbox and Soapbox. And I've been with the city forever. This group here that we lead, we really are about helping the city do that digital transformation. How do we get hands-on with technology, test drive technology before we buy, right? How do we get hands-on, understand what those next disruptors are, and start playing with them now?
So is this new Wave Center? Was this something that was somewhere else before? Was it a new idea? How did it really come to fruition and kick off?
Well, to be honest, one of my colleagues in IT came to me, and I was actually doing economic development with the resilience team here, and he said, "Look, I think we've got to be better at dealing with disruptors. You think of what Uber meant to Calgary, or even what AI is meaning to the city now. We need to get a chance to get our city colleagues, our city business units used to or hands-on and have a better understanding of what's coming next." And so he said, "I'd like to build this sandbox. It's too hard to do experimentation here at the city. We've got policy barriers. IT is responsible for critical infrastructure. So everything is really locked down. They're not good. They're not comfortable with risk, and they shouldn't be. But that means that we have a hard time experimenting." He said, "But if we could build a center that is off the network, so a third party, the university or a startup comes in, if they bring in something and it infects our network, it's not going to shut the lights off on 16th Ave, right? So we need that. We need access to high compute. So actually we partner with Denver Data to allow us to do things like AI and GIS modeling, even some of the VR stuff, all requires a digital twin, requires a higher compute than what we have standard in the city. And then we need to see what those skills are that we're going to need, right? So right now we're playing a lot with digital fabrication and robotics and computer-aided design. This democratization of design and fabrication. We used to have a great big carpentry shop in the city. Then everything became modular and IKEA. We didn't need that fabrication shop anymore. But now with 3D printing in plastics and concrete, with laser cutters, CNC machines, we can start printing custom park benches that match the fit and feel of the neighborhood or the park, or a 3D printed pavilion. What does that look like? Well, there's a lot of experimentation that has to be done now to see what skills are needed to develop that. Do you need CAD? Do you need engineering? How do we, we've got this amazing 3D printed steel pavilion that's coming in Inglewood in the next year or so. Well, we have to call it playground equipment because how do you get a building permit for
test their stuff out, do things like that. Now you say it's kind of a new idea, and you are working with other ecosystems around there. So why don't you talk about how you are working with other ecosystems, whether it be Edmonton or Toronto or maybe somewhere in the States? How are you collaborating and working together and taking, using ideas that other cities are bringing in for you to test how that might work in Calgary?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think having a collision hub, right? I mean, we see what the platform does for startups, right? It just gives people a chance to collide, share ideas, and build. And we're doing that. Our first primary customer is other city business units, right? It's great to have water collide with parks, to collide with IT, to see where that next piece of collaboration could be. But also then, we have living labs, and we make those available to the public. We had actually a company that has a large Canadian presence here in Calgary, but it's from Europe, and they used a warehouse for a month. That was an active city warehouse. It doesn't cost us anything. It doesn't cost to rent space. We're going to do 5 days of testing in a month. You're going to rent a warehouse for a whole month, whereas that could be a real barrier for some startups. It reduces that. So we've also got university. We do tons of stuff with SAIT and Valley College, but they're all able to come and started taking a leadership role in quantum, and they like photon that was rotating in an environment of diversity. They use city fiber for free through living labs and teleported that photon to City Hall. So now you've got this photon trying to get on camera, but this photon, two places at once, right? Yeah. And it's rotating the same, so it's identity. And so that is your lock and key quantum, right? And that really led the globe, and so it got to the point where Calgary was recognized as this hub for quantum, and it continues today. How can city make its assets accessible to industry and academia to test? So whether you're doing crack detection on our C-train lines. That's another great experiment that was done. To an autonomous vehicle, we tested an autonomous bus back in 2018 that actually went from with local companies, and they were able to use fiber as a sensor. And we learned that snow and gophers and magpies all stop autonomous vehicles in 2018, and that slam on the brakes.
Yeah,
nope. No. Challenge out in November, 2 of them actually, where the first one was really in partnership with our team, going to industry and saying, hey, we know that there's AR and VR solutions for training, it's taking off, but we're having a hard time finding a solution that fits our need, which was a training program for safety codes officers. So we post that out to industry as a challenge. Hey, we have, but it's not just like an RFP. We're going to actually experiment with you. You're going to come into the wave for the next 6 months. You're going to work with our subject matter experts and our engineers. And, maybe you've got an off-the-shelf package already, but it's made for American safety codes. Well, we'll work with you to develop the content and experiment how it works with our network, with our HR resources, and let's build a Canadian IP version of that. So right now, I think they're still in the review phase. They're reviewing a dozen companies or so. We're going to bring 2 or 3 of them into the wave, and they will test them out for the next 6 months. At the end of that 6 months, it's not a pathway to procurement, but the business unit will say, you know what, I like these elements or these characteristics of company B, and company C really had this great user interface, and company D really worked well on tracking it within our HR databases. So we're going to put all those requirements into an RFP. So they play with it here, they experiment, the companies get to improve their IP, they get a white paper on how they work with the city of Calgary. We get to better understand is that end technology product that we need. You think of how many companies and municipalities and other institutions, or even just general consumers, you bought that piece of technology without getting a chance to test drive it, and it doesn't meet your needs. You'd never buy a car for $20,000 without taking it for a test drive, but we'll spend millions of dollars on technology without taking it for a run.
Yeah, and I think that's so important, right? You talk about it's a big gap in our ecosystem. We're getting better at it, but I mean, eventually, people like the city and things along those lines, and whatever oil and gas company that want to help, we're hoping to be there. So let's talk a little bit about I want to talk about your workforce a little bit. You talk about, we'll use the woodworking. All of a sudden, it was transitioned into that. So the city itself is kind of upskilling its workforce into becoming into a little more tech friendly. How are we doing that? How is the city doing that? To make these workers, or make the come to the Wave Center, or find work with autonomous vehicles or things along those lines that will actually, there'll be a trickle down effect into the ecosystem.
Yeah, and I think that's the big piece of my role, is that storytelling. storytelling, right? So whether it's coming on podcasts, but we also have a great hosting center here. So we host lunch and learns. We've brought a local company Cubo in to do like a quantum 101, so that roads and parks and even our data folks can start to understand what is coming up for uh, what's coming up. On and where they're getting off scooters. So if you're looking at doing a coffee shop, use the scooter data to tell you where. There's tons of great data on there. We have students with Inception U. They use that all the time. It's better than synthetic data because it's real, and there's huge data sets out there, and they're building apps for the city. Not maybe for purchase or sell, but as example, hey, look what we can do with open data. So I think that's an often overlooked asset. Of course, the Living Labs is great. So we've got an AI company here, IAXA, and they wanted feedback on user feedback on one of their products. So we've got an AI bot in here that does a survey on what people want to see us exploring. So our staff are getting an understanding of what AI and empathetic AI bots can do, whereas the company as a Living Lab is getting feedback on, or actually the Portuguese, the Portuguese language model that it uses has a Canadian accent that's really thick, right? So that's the kind of feedback they're getting. User testing, but feedback from potential users. So I'm trying to think what else. We're working with Denver Data. Just one of the C would be not having single sign-on, right? Yeah. And that's a requirement for the city. So that's a piece of their IP had to improve for us to use it. But now that unlocks the door. They work on that with us. Yeah. Now that unlocks the door for them to work with others, right?
So how would you mentioned the portal to go check out? So how it doesn't contour that might have an idea that they think is good for the city. How do they start getting involved? What's kind of the process? Maybe it's not the Wave Center. Yeah. Is there different ways for somebody to get involved and eventually get to the Wave Center, or?
Yeah. So I mean, again, I think that the easiest way would be to sign up for Ariba. That's the province's purchasing portal. So whether it's the city of Lethbridge or the city of Edmonton or the city of Calgary, if we're looking for a VR solution for training, you can set up your profile and you can look for hashtags or meta tags in there, And so when somebody's talking about VR and that's your interest as a company, you'll get a notification. Uh, we're posting challenges there, safety codes officer, and another one for scalable sensing for parks. And the other way, we have market-led proposals. So if you've got a new technology that the city wouldn't have heard of, you can send it in to the market-led proposals through our, if you can find it on our purchasing, our supply and purchasing site within Calgary.ca, and it'll be reviewed. You wouldn't have heard of our company or what we're doing. It's so unique. It's so innovative that you wouldn't even be able to put it out for an RFP. So let's come in and give you a demonstration. Now it turns out that that's pretty rare that it happens. Like I've got a Street View app. Oh, well, is it like Google or Apple? Yeah, kind of. Okay, well then, you know what? You don't get to come in. We already have those. We'll put those out for RFP. But you've got a quantum sensor for pipes that finds micro fissures in it. Well, great. Well, that might be something, a technology we haven't heard of yet. Come and give. So that's the way in. I think the best way is to monitor Ariba, because then you're not just getting it from Calgary. You're getting a platform Tuesday morning. You've got it's to the city. You want to fly a drone in the city or test a satellite every second. And of course, you tend to have a group of partners from, we worked really close networking opportunities and new networking technology, and even just, leveraging their relationships in the community. So bringing the community together, and again, I want companies to see, what's next and what I think, we talk about the sensors that are being deployed now. I think never letting that crisis go to waste is. We see that on just days. Everybody still had landlines. That's what was recovery and getting repatriation, get stores and everybody else up and running first. So went to call them one of the administrators from the town, and she was friends with everybody on Facebook, right? So this is 2011. So she just reached out on Facebook, said, "Hey, I'm looking for Steve that runs a 7-Eleven. We need to get gas."